This is a Fox News alert. The House approving a Republican-backed bill that would delay IRS regulation of political activity by tax-exempt groups. Democrats insist all the bill does is keep the IRS targeting scandal alive, and the Democrats once again calling the IRS targeting a phony scandal, and they are pointing fingers right at Fox News.
We have all heard the outrage and the innuendo from my Republican colleagues and their chief mouthpiece, Fox News.
Political theater crafted to make the producers at Fox Television happy.
This is not a political issue. This is not about an R or a D. This is about a we.
Here comes the IRS trying to shut down, use the heavy hammer of their power to try to shut down political speech.
Silencing your critics is commonplace in authoritarian countries.
Mr. Speaker, for goodness sakes, this isn't about the First Amendment. Everyone's in favor of the First Amendment. This is about allowing secret money in campaigns.
Whenever someone in Washington tells you, don't worry, it's not really about free speech, trust me, it is.
It's a cowardly act to silence people via backroom regulations.
They try to look populist by creating false and fake scandals.
House Majority Whip Kevin McCarthy joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to be here.
Okay, so a lot of controversy over this 501c4 IRS proposal. Explain what this is.
Well, what it is the IRS is now, knowing the investigations that they've done, are going after 501c4s. And they're saying they can't do GOTV, voter registration, or candidate forms. And what's so ironic here, if you look at 501c3s, they're allowed to do it all. These are tax deductible. Here are the unions. They're all allowed to do it all. This is the president and administration trying to stifle the voices. And this isn't about just Republicans opposed to this. ACLU is opposed to this, and also the Sierra Club, because this is what the new proposal would be. Stifle the 501c4s.
What's the difference between a 501c4 and a 501c3?
This is tax deductible. These are your charitable. These are Sierra Club, these are your volunteer firefighters, these are the individual groups going it through. And you know what? The comment period ends tomorrow. They've gotten 69,000 comments on this. Sierra Club opposed, ACLU. Keystone only got 7,000 comments. They've never had these many comments, and mostly all opposed.
All right, now, what the Republicans say is that it's designed to sort of shut down the Tea Party groups, but it applies equally to liberal groups and conservative and Tea Party groups, right?
I don't care who it goes after. It's wrong. It's government trying to shut your voice down.
But why,
Remember what the First Amendment says.
But why would the administration want to shut down groups that they may think are favorable to them?
Well, they're shutting down more of the groups that they think are unfavorable because the unions are not shut down. Remember? They're allowed to do the same thing. These are the other ones. And what they're doing here is they're saying they want to move forward. We're saying, no, postpone it a year. What did we get today from Lois Lerner's attorney? She's supposed to come testify on the 5th. She wants immunity. Now, if it was all trumped up that the IRS was going after all these groups, why would she ask for immunity? Why would she have taken the 5th? And why would the IRS come after free speech?
All right. So essentially, the way this works is that the groups that are more likely to be favorable to the Tea Party or to conservatives are the ones that are being shut down by this, as opposed to the ones that are more favorable to the Democratic Party, the unions.
This is trying to rig a system to protect themselves, to make friends, and to say who can talk and who can't. The ACLU literally says in here, we'll produce the same structural issues at the IRS that led to the use of inappropriate criteria in the selection of various charitable social groups for undue scrutiny. That's the ACLU saying he is wrong.
All right. Why, if it's so bad, why are you only postponing it a year? Why don't you derail it forever?
We're trying to be rational here. Let's postpone it a year till we get the end of the IRS investigation done. Lois Lerner hasn't even come back. She took the 5th, and now her attorney today when we vote. And remember, we got 14 Democrats to vote with us. Today, the attorney sends and says, I'll only come or send her if she gets immunity.
All right, so she can either be granted immunity, which she says she'll show up, or if she will refuse to show up, or she'll show up and take the 5th again. Would you recommend that she be held in contempt if she doesn't testify without immunity?
Yes, you have to get to the bottom of this. She spoke at the very beginning and then took the 5th.
Right,
she got an opening statement.
All right, that was last May. What's taken so long?
What's taken so long? Because they will hold up every firewall they can to not give you an investigation. What do they tell to the American public at the very beginning? Oh, that's just two ladies off to the side looking at something. We find out it was much more than that. They won't give you the information, and now they won't even come testify. If it's nothing, come before it, testify, answer the questions, and don't say you have to have immunity. The only people I know that ask for immunity before they testify have something to hide.
Well, actually, as a former criminal defense lawyer, I always told my clients, no matter what, whether guilty or innocent, you better take the fifth. There's supposedly a criminal referral on this with Attorney General Holder. Is there a criminal investigation open?
Look, is Holder really going to look at this? I mean,
I know it's taken him so long. I mean, it's like,
I
tell you, this is last May. I don't know what's taken him so long.
I know exactly what's taken Holder so long, because he doesn't want to look at anything. This is wrong to the American public. You got to get to the bottom of this. Anytime government, I don't care who's in administration at the time, you cannot use government to stifle people's voices. You cannot use government to pick friends and enemies in the process. That's why we created this government, for freedom and liberty, and they're doing everything opposed to that.
What do you make of the cracks about Fox News all the time?
Well, I think, you know what, they always say your enemies really tell whether you fight or not, and that's I'd use it as a badge of honor.
Congressman, thank you. Always nice to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Now, to someone who knows the inner workings of the IRS very well, former IRS Commissioner Mark Everson joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta.
Tell me, you know Lois Lerner. Your thoughts on the fact that she took the fifth last year. Some people say that she didn't effectively take the fifth, and she also gave a speech so that she sort of waived it. But now she's being called back into the hot seat next week. Your thoughts, sir?
First of all, I think it's fine that she took the fifth. When the Speaker of the House says, I'm looking for who's going to go to jail, and as you indicate, the Attorney General of the United States says, I'm opening a criminal investigation, that's serious stuff. So I would have taken the fifth if I was at the center of this, but I would not have done what she did, which was make the statement professing innocence and making a few statements and then going on. She should have just sat there and quietly took the fifth, as you indicated, is very common. And the way to get at this is to grant the immunity. If you go back to the equally, perhaps more serious crises of Watergate and Iran-Contra, that's what happened in certain instances. It makes it tougher for justice to prosecute, but there's a way to solve this and get to the bottom of it, and that should certainly happen, Greta. We need to get this fully aired, and people need to understand what happened here.
Here's the problem with immunity. If they grant her immunity, is that she does seem to be at the center of this, and it's reasonable to be suspicious of her as being the top dog in this, and you never give immunity to the one who is ultimately the most responsible. That's the problem. That's why you give the immunity to the fringe people.
Right, except I would suggest that in this instance, I think what really concerns the Republicans the most, and all Americans, is did this reach from Lois into other parts of the service or other parts of the Treasury or the White House? So I think that still respects the protocol that you're speaking of, and I think it's absolutely necessary in order to get this fully aired. And I would like to hear from Lois. As you indicated, I worked with her. We did important work on C3s and churches in the 2004 election cycle, and it was looked at by the Inspector General, and it was deemed to have been done in a balanced way. So I know the service can do better at these kinds of issues than it has in this instance.
Well, it seems that they obviously knew something was awry, because they had that sort of fancy footwork where they had a question posted in the audience to be asked about. So, I mean, it seems like there's something. I mean, it does seem very suspicious here, and the fact that the particular groups they all fall into one category generally who are targeted, which are Tea Party. So it's reasonable to be suspicious of Lois Lerner as well as anyone who's working with her.
I can't disagree with you. What's happened here was really quite poor. It's damaged the service and it's damaged the government. There's a cohort of the American people that are really convinced, I don't know how big it is, 5, 10, 15% of the taxpaying public, that the government's out to get them, and that this is not helped, by the way, Greta, with the NSA overreach and that issue, too. It all converges. But let me say this. I think the president's new commissioner is a very strong individual. I think that he'll run the agency in a balanced way and will move forward. So I hope that Congress grants the immunity, gets through this, and that we get the truth and we move on, because the service faces very real challenges in areas like identity theft, which is rampant, and the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, as you know.
Well, I don't think they even. I suspect they won't even have to go to immunity, because I think that her lawyer did give her bad advice, and I think that she did waive the fifth. So I think she's running smack into the problem. Is that she's either going to have to answer the questions, having waived the fifth, or she's going to face contempt, which could mean incarceration until she does answer it. So she may have deeper problems. But how does this even? I mean, assume that there is this targeting scandal, and obviously I said I'm suspicious. I think that there was. Looking at what I know, is this sort of a? I mean, how many people at the IRS would know about this? Is this sort of like a culture where where people sort of looking the other way, knowing that someone may be doing something a little bit not quite right, targeting people?
Not in my experience. In my experience, people up and down the line tried to do what was right. And what I find most disturbing here was the commissioner himself. I've said this before publicly, Shulman. He was getting letters from Orrin Hatch, who's no piker, a very senior member of the Finance Committee, saying, why are you beating up on the C4s? And at the same time, getting letters from Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer saying you're not beating up enough on the C4s. If that's the case, it behooves you to find out what you're doing, make sure it's being done properly. And as I saw some of the testimony on this at Ways and Means and other places, the obsessive questioning, donor lists, and almost a shakedown, it went way too far. And as you indicate, it seems to have been pretty clearly more targeted towards one side of the political spectrum. It's totally legitimate to look at activities. It's not legitimate to look at policies of the organization. That's what I would suggest.
All right, one last thing is that what drives me absolutely nuts is the fact that I think, look, this has been going on since May. The commissioner, I realize he's a new commissioner. There's an acting commissioner when this started, but still the documents, all the information has not been provided to Congress per Congress. What in the world is slowing things down? I realize you're not there anymore, but it looks like feet dragging.
I'm not sure that's the case. You've got very exacting standards. There are broad requests, and there are hundreds of thousands of documents that need to be produced, and they need to go through the right screens. Now, I certainly hope, as does everybody, that is done promptly, that we get Lois's testimony behind us, and that the conclusions are reached one way or the other, Greta, so that it's way too important for this agency to be run and respected by the American people as even-handed, and I hope it gets back to that and does so promptly.
Commissioner, thank you. Always nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you.
And joining us, our political panel, Fortune Magazine's senior editor Nina East and The Hill's A.B. Stoddard and National Review's Jim Garrity. Nina, first to you on this IRS business with Lois Lerner.
Well, first of all, it's interesting that, a year into this, we've got 2 Senate investigations, 2 House investigations, a Justice Department investigation, a lawsuit filed by 41 groups that were targeted, and we still don't know what happened. We still don't know the root of this. We don't know how far up this goes.
But let me just say one thing. I actually fault the investigators a little bit, because I'll tell you, and I think probably Congressman Trey Gotti, who was a former prosecutor, feel the same way I did. You start issuing subpoenas. I mean, there are ways to get this information, and just sort of this volley of letters that they send back in weeks and weeks and weeks in between. No wonder you don't get an answer fast.
Yeah, and that may be it. I mean, but part of it is getting those subpoenas out there. Part of it, I would say, probably is giving immunity to Lois Lerner. She's clearly at the center of this. She wouldn't get immunity, by the way, if she lied in the process to committee, for example. It wouldn't extend to that. But it does seem like that she's so much at the center that you need to free her up to speak if you're ever going to get the final answer.
I would never give her immunity. I would push the whole fact that she waived the Fifth Amendment when she gave her speech, and I would start nibbling around the edges and issue subpoenas for all the documents and emails around the edges and move in on her. And A.B., what?
Well, I mean, that's probably a good strategy. It's not one they've pursued. At this point, if they cannot get her, her lawyer says he's given the committee evidence that she's under serious threat of physical harm or death threats, that they're just going to bring her back to the committee. She's going to invoke the Fifth, and they're just going to embarrass her and get nowhere. I think it's really a question of whether or not they don't know what happened, and unless they start doing what you're saying they need to do, they're not going to find out what happened. I really think at this point, do you want to punish her or do you want to know what happened? She's going to tell everything if they give her immunity. It would be hard to see why that wouldn't be the course to take after all these months at this point.
Except for the fact that this is a profoundly serious crime. I really